The fantastic writers over at Ninjago and also the fantastic animators put so much effort into the show of Ninjago. There is bursting amounts of details when you actually take a close look at the show. And to this very day, I still find myself pointing out new and interesting details from any of the respective seasons. I still find myself actively finding new things when it does come to the show, and it is one of the main reasons why I love it. So for today, I thought I would document 5 of these details that I have pointed out. Honestly, all of these are so fascinating to me, and I think are going to be very fascinating to you, because some of these I didn't even realise until very recent rewatches, and this has come from someone who has been around for the show since day one. So sit back, relax, and let's take a look at some details that you may have missed from Ninjago. We're going to start off with the ones that I think are more common and move into the less common occurrences that I have found today. Starting off, we're going to go to season 9, and initially speaking, this was a fairly unknown detail, but in recent time, it has definitely become a lot more popular. And this detail comes from one of the very first shots that we ever got within season 9. It is the one where we see Dareth trying to make his way back to the ninja's headquarters. And the thing is that in the background, we see a character that gets introduced later on in the episode. And that is none other than the Master of Amber herself. You can see Skylar just stood in the background observing Dareth. And the thing is that this is the only image we have of it because she is there for a few frames at best. And the thing is that when season 9 first dropped, I don't think anyone noticed this. I certainly didn't notice it until a few rewatches down the line. And honestly, it was completely fascinating to see it, and it genuinely blew my mind. It definitely does reinforce my love for the Oni trilogy because they just simply didn't have to do that. It took more effort to put her in the shot than honestly it probably was necessary, but it's just there for people on rewatch or even for your first watch because it does set up so much, and it definitely does give so much explanation for how the Resistance actually did find Lloyd, Nia, Masako and Pixel. Honestly, I love this detail, and again, really does speak to the quality of the Oni trilogy. I really do wish we just got simply more of this within the course of Ninjago. I obviously am assuming that there is plenty that I'm not mentioning, and there probably is something that someone could point out to me in the comments, but the thing is that it's such an interesting detail, and I wish more of these would be pointed out. Obviously, what makes this special is the fact that it is fairly unique, but honestly, it would be nice to get more of this kind of subtle foreshadowing. I love this aspect of Ninjago, and I'm wondering if you do it as well. So, that is the first detail that you may have missed. Detail number 2 that honestly needs to be talked about more actually comes from multiple seasons and was initially a case of controversy. So it's really cool to see this subtle progression that no one really mentions. It comes from both season 2, season 5 and season 8, and it concerns Kai's ability to swim. In season 2, we have a shot where Kai is willing to swim across the entirety of the ocean to be able to get back to Ninjago City, of course implying that he can swim. And initially speaking, people found this to be very cool, but in season 5, it was re-established that Kai cannot swim and he's afraid of the ocean. And a lot of people were very upset about this because of Kai's actions within season 2. Now personally speaking, I always interpreted the season 2 scene as Kai essentially just bluffing. I always interpreted it as Kai was never fully willing to actually swim because he willingly stops on his own accord. And actually, when he does stop, he has this really weird expression, almost like he's afraid of the water, like within season 5. But that's the thing, season 5 hard stuck Kai within the category of unable to swim and afraid of the water. But this brings us into season 8. In the scene where all of the ninja need to get within the royal palace to be able to stop the ceremony, we have a shot of course of all of the ninja within scuba gear and Kai within a submarine. And the thing is that of course it is product placement, but you can of course interpret it in a very different sense, or more specifically interpret it in the way of Kai cannot swim and is afraid of the water. Remember that the ninja were in full scuba gear. They had oxygen, they had rebreathers, they had absolutely everything that they did need. And of course, they're ninja and they train all the time. They have more than enough stamina to be able to accomplish that swim. So of course, Kai having a submarine was completely unnecessary unless it's a callback to when Kai established that he couldn't swim. And it's such an amazing little detail just to simply call back on. Again, there was no reason whatsoever for them to actually establish this scene. And again, you can argue that they had to do it because it was a set, but many Ninjago sets do not make their way into the show. But this scene did, and honestly, I do consider it to be a very subtle nod and a very subtle detail back to Kai from season 5. And honestly, gives this really subtle timeline, because Kai using a submarine makes a lot of sense when you think of it in that context. Detail number 3 comes from everyone's favourite season, which is Crystallize. And of course, you can have your opinions on this season, but there is a very, very cool little detail that I feel like does need a lot more acknowledgement, and it comes from one of the very final scenes within the show itself. In the shot where the ninja are putting the monastery back together and pulling back up the monastery doors, of course they remark at how long it's going to be to actually repair the monastery, and Zane actually does remark at how long it will take. He says 12 years, 8 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days, and you may think that is an extremely random number that they pulled out of thin air, when in reality it actually isn't, and it's honestly really cool to actually see this in motion. Because Zane's time estimation of 12 years, 8 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days is actually the exact amount of time between the release of the pilot episodes and also the crystallized episodes. The entirety of the time we had Ninjago up until that point was cited from Zane in its exact sense. And I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you, that is such a cool little nod that you wouldn't acknowledge unless you really did check the specific dates. Honestly, I don't know who discovered this, but kudos to you for checking something like this, because that is beyond ball knowledge and I cannot physically comprehend it. That is such an unnecessary little thing to add into the show, and such an unnecessary little throwaway line that no one may have even picked up on. But the thing is that they still did it, and I really do appreciate the writers for that. I think that's such a nice little nod to the true timescale of Ninjago, and I can't help but be appreciative for it. Again, really reinforcing to me why I love this show, because it's all of these unnecessary little details that I can't help but adore. Detail number 4 is also a Zane-oriented detail, but actually coming from Dragon's Rising, and you may be shocked that Zane had something interesting within the course of the show. Well, the thing is that it also does come from Prime Empire, but I really do like this one, and it comes down to Zane's use of his detective outfit. Zane has actually utilized the detective outfit over 3 different situations. He used it within Prime Empire, and then he used it in Dragon's Rising Season 1 and also Season 2. And the thing is that you may not think anything of it, and they just simply reuse the detective outfit that we've seen before. But the thing is that every single time we've seen it, they actually did make variants. Zane very easily could have just continued to have used the original Detective Zane outfit, which has the Season 11 outfit on the underside, and that would have been completely fine. But the thing is that in Dragon's Rising Season 1, they changed the outfit to actually reflect his merged suit, and then in Season 2, we actually see the mech suit underneath the outfit again. The fact is that every single time Zane has utilized that disguise, they have actually changed the model and put the current use of the suit underneath the jacket. And again, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, that is such an unnecessary detail, a subtle detail, but I really do appreciate it. Like I said, they could have very comfortably have just used the Season 11 underside, but they didn't. Like, it's such a nice attention to detail and definitely fits into the world very well, and I can't help but thank them for it. It makes complete sense that Zane would just keep the jacket around, and he would put it over the current outfit, and that is exactly what they've done here. Honestly, again, very good from LEGO's animators. Will Film and also Wildbrain have done so many amazing little details, and this is definitely one of them. I can't appreciate this one enough, and I really do like the detail when I'm rewatching these seasons. But that does actually bring us to the final detail, and this is the reason why I actually wanted to make this video, because this is a confusing one if anything, and honestly remains kind of a mystery, and it regards Lloyd's elemental power, or more specifically the effects that they use for the elemental ability. From Season 1 until the event of Day That Departed, you will note that Lloyd's elemental beam is a quite literal beam of light. It is very pointed, it's very straight, it's very narrow, and it's honestly really nice looking. It's such a nice elemental ability, and I really do miss when the effect did look like this. However, come the point of Season 7, and you will note that there is an actual animation change when it does come to Lloyd's elemental power, and I don't actually have an explanation as to how this could have been the case. Sure, the vendor and the whole animation sequence for Season 7 was a bit lackluster at best, but I actually don't really know how this could have been pulled off. If you look closely at Lloyd's elemental power in Season 7, it is completely different. There is no similarities whatsoever in his elemental beam from the first few seasons to Season 7, and the thing is, I can actually isolate exactly where the effects actually came from. Lloyd's power actually went from this beam of light to a combination of two of the other elemental abilities. Its power is now actually got a lightning bolt in it, obviously similar to Jay's, but the beam as a whole is actually basically Zane's power of ice. It is the exact same type of beam, just with the electric bolt within it, and it's all turned to be green. So it is completely different to what we actually saw before. But again, there is actually no explanation for this. The only theory I've been able to come to when it does come to why this was the case is that during the production of Season 7, of course things were rushed, there were many issues when it does come to it, and the season just looks very choppy as a whole. And I think a consequence of it is that they either lost or they just simply got rid of Lloyd's elemental effects. So they needed to rebuild the effects, and instead of just making a completely brand new one or emulating the old one, they just reused assets from other elemental powers. And the thing is that once you see it, you cannot unsee it, because not only is Lloyd's power different and a combination of Zane and Jay's, you can also see that he starts to fire his elemental power exactly like how Zane does it. So they just completely recycled all of Zane's animations in particular and adds in a little bit of Zane flair. And honestly, it's really interesting to note. This isn't a detail that's a case of brilliance by any account, it's just a really interesting detail that no one really talks about, and I would love to know how this actually came to be a thing, what actually happened behind the scenes to cause Lloyd's power to be completely different, because I for one would love to know what truly happened and why this was the decision that they came to. But just like that, that is the last detail that I wanted to talk about today. And this is where I want to know, what is your favorite animation detail or just detail in general that I pointed out in this video? Are there any in particular that you didn't know? Did you know all of them? I would love to know what you think of these details and which of these is your favorite. And just generally speaking, what is your favorite Ninjago detail? It could be story related, animation related, anything under the above. The thing is that it's so interesting to note that these details exist and we can actually point them out. And I for one absolutely adore them. But that is about it for today, you guys. Thank you very much for watching the video, and I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, please consider subscribing. I love talking about Ninjago with more people. And if you do want to support the channel any further, which you do not have to, you could always join the channel members like the ones you see on screen. These legends are supporting me and I cannot thank them enough. And a particular shout out to Grandmaster Sensei 28208 for being an eternal legend. Thank you very much, my friend. But that is about it for today, you guys, and thank you very much for watching. Take care. Okay, bye!